Hi, Sam here from Roberts Geospatial. Today we're going to look at the Multispectral product database in ProRaster Scientific. So I have ProRaster Scientific running here on the left, and on the right I've got the ProRaster user guide, and we'll be referring to that. So we've already looked at the Multispectral scene database, which you access from this button here on the ProRaster main dialog. The product database is where everything really starts to get going. So from scenes, you will create products and you will put those products into your product database. And your product databases are all managed from this button on the main dialog. So if I drop this down, you'll see that there's only a few options. You can create a new product database, you can delete an existing product database, and you can browse or open and browse a product database. And here are the product databases that I have created, and we can open any one of these and it will bring up the product database browser. So before I go into that, let's take a look at what product databases actually are. So bring up the File Explorer, and just like scenes, go to your C drive, go to your users directory, into your username, and then the RGE directory, ProRaster Scientific, MSS. This is where you will find all your product databases. This is where ProRaster Scientific will place them, and you can't put them anywhere else. So your product database will have a MSS PDB extension. And by default, I give them a PDB underscore naming convention. So here's all of our product databases here. In addition to the database file, it will create a directory of the same name. So when you name your database, it has to be able to create not only the file, but also a folder of the same name. So here's our PDB folders, and inside these folders you'll find all of the virtual rasters that are associated with the products in that product database, and also all of the virtual rasters and statistics and rendering algorithms and anything else that will then be created for each of those products via the product editor, which is the next on the list, but we won't be looking at that in this video. So that's where you find your products. Now, the scene database is easy to create. You just import your scenes and it does it all automatically. On the other hand, product databases are made manually. So if you delete a product database or damage it in some way accidentally, then you're going to have to recreate it by hand, and that might be, there might be a significant amount of work involved in that. So where the scene database, I tend to call a fairly low value product, your product database is a high value product. Also, you note that these product database files are only small, just some kilobytes. We don't store any data in the product database. It's just contains descriptions of the products and all of the processing chains associated with those products, and so they're just these product databases are just small files. There's no actual data of any kind in them. There will be more files in the folder associated with the product database, and for example in here you'll find things like statistics files, which can be a bit larger. But generally speaking, these are just small virtual rasters and various things, and they don't take up much space. So I'll just read from the manual here for a second. So you can create as many product databases as you want, and how you organize those is up to you. You may want to put everything into a large single database. You probably won't. You'll probably work on a per project basis and create a product database for every project that you create. Your product database file has a name.msspdb file name. And you must specify this name when you create the database. You cannot change it thereafter. And of course, it must also be unique. So we'll see that in a minute. Each product database you create will be located in C, users in your username, RGE, ProRaster Scientific, MSS. It will be in that folder on your main drive and you cannot move it. When you create a new product database, it creates a new folder in that MSS folder of the same name. If you have matching scene and product databases for a project, it's a good idea to differentiate those files with some naming prefix like SDB underscore for scene and PDB for product, which is what I use by standard. So the new folder created for the product database will contain all the virtual raster files and all the other files that are created for every product in the database. And when you delete a product database, both the MSS PDB file and the folder and all of its contents will be deleted, and that will all go off to the recycle bin. So let's have a look at creating a database. So hit create new product database, and as before you get this little naming dialog, and there's a little exclamation mark here saying this product database name is not unique. I've already got a product database called my new product database, so I'll call this my not so new DB, and now it's giving me a tick saying that this database name is unique and valid. I can put in a description for the database, then hit OK, and it will create a new database and open up the browser. Not going to create a new one. So let's browse to a database. So let's say, for example, this one, PDB Kurabulka. So the product database browser is just like the scene database browser. In fact, it works exactly the same way. You have a map up here that you can pan and zoom around as you browse over your product. Excuse me. You'll see the boundary of each product in here, and it'll give you a tooltip about what product you're looking at. You can double click and it will do a spatial query and select that product. And as before, you have these undo and buttons down here for doing your queries. On the right click menu, you've got your 0 countries, you've got your projections, so we can go to South Pole or North Pole or anything else. And go back to standard, and you have select visible products option. So if you zoom into some area and you just say select the visible products that intersect with this area, you just get the ones that intersect. Down in the spreadsheet, you've got some options to adjust the widths. We don't have the column selector that we had in the scene database. All the columns that you have available are right here. You see your description, there's a date associated with each product, a name, an ID, and the type of product. So again, you can sort by these columns, and you can do a selection here, and it will select all of the products that match the thing that you double-clicked on. So I double-clicked on Mosaic, so it's selected all those mosaics, and I can then collapse to that selection. So it's just like the scene database. So going down to the spreadsheet, you can select a product, right-click on it, and you get some options. So you can edit the product. When you hit edit product, it will bring up the product editor for that particular product. That's another dialog. The alternative is to double-click on that row and it will bring up the product editor for that product. You can also delete a product. That will delete the product from the database, and it will also delete all of the files that were created associated with that product. It won't delete any data. It won't delete any scenes. It just deletes the product files that were created for that product. you can create products from scenes. And there are some keywords. So you have scene, mosaic, collated, and sequence. So if you put those 4 words together in almost any combination, you're going to create a different kind of product. So let's just take a look at what those things are. So I have a scene database open here. If I select a scene and right-click on it, I can create a scene product. So that's the simplest kind of product. It just consists of a single scene. If I select that scene and the scene that is spatially next to it, then I can create a mosaic product. So now I have 2 scenes spatially next to each other, and we create a product which combines those 2 scenes. If we take this, let's say this scene and this scene, which is the same spatial scene, but it's collected at a different time, right-click. Now I can create a collated scene product. And a collated scene is different to, or collated mosaic is different to a mosaic in that you have to specify a masking band. Also, if I select that scene at 2 different times, you can see that I can create a scene sequence product. So that's a scene at 2 different time points. So let's go through what we can do. We can create a scene. We can create a collated scene from that scene gathered at multiple time points brought together using a mask. We can create a mosaic from multiple spatially adjacent scenes. We can create a collated mosaic where we have multiple spatially adjacent scenes, but also scenes acquired perhaps at different times as well. So we're combining all that, collating all of that data together into one mosaic. And then we have sequence modifiers for all of that. So we have a scene sequence, we have a collated scene sequence, we have a mosaic sequence, and we have a collated mosaic sequence. Now from the scene database browser, you can create most of those things, but you can't create, for example, a mosaic sequence or a collated scene sequence or a collated mosaic sequence. Some of those things have to be made from the product browser. So if we go into a product browser, like this one, so here we have a bunch of mosaics. So if I click on those mosaics and right-click, it found that they were incompatible because I selected one that was not compatible. If I right-click now, then it will say I can create a mosaic sequence product. And when I do that, it will create a new product, goes into the database. Here it appeared down the bottom. And now I have a sequence of this particular mosaic. So from our product database, coming back here to the manual, from the scene database you can make a scene, a collated scene, a scene sequence, a mosaic and a collated mosaic, but from the product database we can create a scene sequence. So there's 2 different ways to make a scene sequence: a collated scene sequence, a mosaic sequence, or a collated mosaic sequence. And we'll see good examples of this in the Kurabulka study, which I'll post soon. Thanks for watching.